kind of, and it scares me every single time. Hey folks, we are live. Like I said, it comes up really quick, but hey everyone, welcome to SVT time. It is another Tuesday. It's SVT time. It's me, Dino. Dom's here. We got two very, very special guests here that we've been waiting for this for a while. And by the way, Dom, this is episode 70.
Wow.
We need where's my cake?
Yeah, right. Well, 75th anniversary of Ampeg, 70th episode. We're getting there. They haven't shut us off yet.
Yeah, so you've only done one a year. Wait a minute, what's going on here?
I was an infant at the time when we started this. I could barely talk.
Yeah, see, here's Ampeg.
Oh man. I want to say thank you to Robert Scovill and Harmoni Kelley for joining us today. This is like
pleasure.
The whole idea behind this, man. It's like, obviously, Harmoni, you are an SVT time. I think you're a 3-time vet now. I
was gonna say, I think this is my 3rd time.
Yeah. So obviously, it's always great to have bass players come on, and we talk everything from bass gear to chicken sandwiches, but. And Robert, we're going to talk chicken sandwiches with you too, but
all right, bring it.
This is this perspective that I always want to have, like the performer on the stage and the person that's mixing everything. It's like the ingredients and the chef sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So welcome. Thank you for doing this. And we're basically just going to jump right in here, but I'll start with you, Robert. So I mean, you've had, and you still are having an amazing career, credentials, credits. I mean, quite honestly, I mean, I've known you through Harmoni, and I've known you through another mutual friend, Daniel Keller.
Yeah.
But I never really looked at your credits until we set this broadcast. I'm like, oh, wait a second. So.
Well, none of them are accurate. I just made them all up and put them up on a website.
Okay, so you do the same thing.
This is what everybody does in this.
Yeah, nobody looks at a resume. So
actually, Kenny Chesney is my first tour. Right? This has worked out pretty good.
That's awesome. Now, how long have you been doing the Kenny Chesney? Is this your first tour with Kenny, or
this is my 3rd. I did the first tour, the first stadium tour with him post pandemic.
Okay,
which was in 2022, I believe.
Okay.
So we've done a stadium tour, an arena tour, and now we're on our next stadium tour. So.
Okay. And this is obviously how you ran into this young lady, Harmoni.
Yeah.
There's an interesting dynamic going on here. And
Harmoni
I'm glad
was
you guys are separated by about 1,500 miles right now.
Harmoni was the first band member that I interacted with when I got on site in Nashville. Yeah. So it left a mark. So.
On your heart or your liver?
It's a mark or a scar.
I'm still in recovery.
I always tell people this story because one of the first things that Robert said to me whenever we first started working together was he came up to me and he goes, "Do you trust me?" And I was like, "Oh man, that is a."
We've known each other for 2.5 minutes. Do you trust me? Yeah, let's just go there.
Oh man. Do you have a fondness for bass players above other musicians, or do you treat everybody equally? Or I know that's kind of a weird question, but I mean,
no, it's not a weird question at all. And it's going to sound convenient to say it here, but this is my absolute belief. It's the most important instrument in the whole game. Okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, if you grew up listening to Paul McCartney all your life, you realize how important the bass guitar is, Yeah. So, ironically in the live sound world, I think it's the most difficult instrument to get happening for the audience, I mean, because there's just so many things working against you. So, I'm on record as saying, and I stand by it, once you get the bass guitar sorted out and reading properly with the other instrumentation, the rest of it just kind of falls in place. I mean, it doesn't mix itself, honestly, but once you get that hurdle sorted out and get it really happening, man, everything becomes so much easier. So that was the impetus behind this whole thing we're going to talk about today. So
yeah. That's are you doing anything tomorrow night? You want to come mix my band?
I'll just forewarn you, I'm really expensive now.
That's
so
it.
just be ready. Be ready for the invoice.
I pay in M&Ms and brown liquid.
Okay. Oh, well,
Right.
that's how Harmony hired me. So that's all good.
He's considering it. I'm telling you, he's considering it.
No, it's and thank you for saying that, because that's, obviously we're all bass players here too, but we've all run into the situation. I just ran into it Thursday night when we were playing New Hampshire Motor Speedway, and when it came time to do for my sound check, I yelled to the front of house guy, Zach. I was like, "Hey man, you ready for me?" He goes, "Oh no, you're all set. I already got you while you were setting up." I was like, "There's no way you got me while I was setting up." Ironically, he actually did a really good job. Like my ears were pristine and everything was nice. So, but yeah, when he said that, I'm like, how did you get me? What? So anyways, it's yeah.
Well, I mean, and I'm going to be a little critical of my own industry here. There has been a little bit of a glossing over of bass guitar over years, I mean, I just loathe this idea of, well, just put a DI on the bass and we'll just use it. It's like, okay, well, yes, it's important to have a DI. Okay, I'll take a DI.
Sure.
But there's more to it than this, I mean, granted, we may do that in the studio, et cetera, but there's a lot more to getting a bass sound than just making sure I can hear the guitar coming right off the DI. I mean, come on, there's more to it than that. And especially, in Harmony's situation, which, I kind of came in loaded for bear when I met her, because I had been listening to tracks that were previously recorded from the tour. And, what I was immediately struck with, and she'll verify this because we talked about this a lot, is like, Harmony, you're going to be in with 3 distorted guitar players here.
Yep.
We've got to find a way to make you read here. I mean, and just having this nice clean DI is not going to do it. You're just going to be invisible in this band sonically if we don't get some juice on this bass sound. So,
yeah. Wow. And that's kind of like, and I know that was one of the questions that I had posted in the outline yesterday. A lot of it comes down to trust.
Mm-hmm.
So
how's it working out, Harm?
It's great. I mean, that makes sense considering that was the first question he asked me was, "Do you trust me?" And I was like, "Oh man, what are we doing?" But then I came to realize that it's a lot of, he has a lot to work with. I mean, this band, there's a lot going on in this band. And
sure.
There's 3, at any moment, 3 to 4 electric guitars on stage, or there's a couple guys that are multi-instrumentalists, so there's a bouzouki, a
B3 organ.
Wow.
There's fiddle, there's all kinds of stuff happening, and we're in a this big cavernous arena, stadium that's open air or a stadium with a roof on it, so there's so much going on, and I'm playing, a 5-string P bass. So, I feel like there's the potential for that low beat rate really kind of get lost in the mud.
Yeah.
But,
Not if you're doing it right. So there you go.
Wow.
And we're doing it right. You're doing it
Yeah, we
right.
are doing it right. Yeah. No, I mean, that low string has come to life with this whole thing we're doing now. So it's beautiful.
That's really cool to hear. I feel like as bassists, it's scary. Like, it's funny that you said, "Do you trust me?" Because that is the biggest factor, because you have no idea how you're feeling out front. Because of all instruments, I feel like a general audience has no idea what bass guitar sounds or feels like. They just know sometimes when it's not there because they can feel it, but they can't articulate. So I guess how do you find out that Robert was killing it? Like, how'd you just like, you felt it on stage? You felt
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. I do feel like there's a feeling, and I mean, and then just even listening back to those first, because he always shares, kind of the live board mix with us all the next couple days afterwards of every single show that we're doing, and then, but even before that, just when we're in, when we're at Soundcheck in Nashville, or when we're in Tampa doing run throughs, and like I get a chance to hear what he's hearing, or he's got it and he's mixing our live sound check from front of house, and we can go out at front of house and just kind of stand in the stadium and hear what it's, even though there's not, 60,000 people there, the sense of kind of what that's going to feel like. It's like, oh my God. And I even remember this, the first time I heard one of those board mixes, I was like, I hear the bass. I hear like, I know and I remember my amazing bass tech, T Fox said, Harm, I mean, I knew you were always doing something cool, but I can hear what you're doing.
What a concept. I mean, right?
I know what I'm doing. I know these runs that I'm playing, but I think I kind of take it for granted, and then it gets just lost in the mix, but then I was like, oh my God, I just heard the thing that I did. And it was like a really intricate part, or, and it sounds amazing, and it's got a growl, and it's got articulation, and it's standing out away from the guitars, and it's just sitting there. Like, it's amazing. So I don't know.
Yeah. And the funny part of that is, you've kind of heard the progression of this, right? Because we've progressed what we've been doing here over 3 tours now, and even where we started, I mean, I felt like I had a pretty good handle on it early, but there was always this clock tick in my head going, no, we're not there yet. Got to get this, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not right. Got to have that right. Well, and, the place where it's really translated, it's funny you picked up on it, because even my wife, Mary Jo, picked up on this at the shows. Okay. Which is, used to be like previous to what we did this tour, if you were going up the neck, if you were playing up the neck, I had to have that kind of pre-programmed and ride it. No question about it. I mean, I had to feature it and know all of those places you were doing it. And I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Like I can just let the bass ride and let you do it. And everything you're doing up the neck now reads so beautifully to the audience now. It's just awesome. It's just awesome. I'm getting chills on my arm just thinking about it.
In my ears with the way, and I think it's changed the way I'm playing a little bit, because I had to
100%.
Because it's because of the mic placement and the war wagon, and that, which we'll get into all that. Yeah. But I think it's shifting the way that I'm playing a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of the realizations I had early on, because I was distorting the bass. I was actually using some SVT simulation at the console in the early parts of it, and which I had experimented a lot when I was working with Petty. But and this is stuff that the audience would never pick up on, but as the mixer, you can pick up on it. And I was like, she's not connected to that sound yet. Like, that's not the sound she's hearing in her ears yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I knew once we did this thing, and I think I actually forewarned you, Harmony, a little bit, and said, this might adjust how you're going to play and attack strings. It's just going to affect it here, because dynamically, this is going to act very differently to how a DI acts. So, and I've watched it happen. I mean, and you've gotten amazingly better at it over a very short period of time. It's been really fun to watch.
It's evolved very quickly. I mean, even at the beginning of rehearsals at soundcheck, when this whole concept, when we started working with it, even within those first, few weeks, we've been, you and Terry kind of worked together to keep tweaking it and changing levels and adjusting mic placement and all that stuff. So it's even evolved, just within like March and April. So
wow,
so cool.
So now that we're deep in this, because and everybody now is commenting like, we need to know. Like, or if you can share without, if you give away secret sauce, I totally understand the progression of like kind of where you are, and feel free to feel detailed. Somebody said, I'll send you the invoice.
Yeah, we're going to get into, I think we'll start with the war wagon and work backwards then.
Yeah, maybe.
Because if I remember correctly, then Robert, with you being on the last 2 tours and this being the 3rd tour, Harmony's previous rig was that Portaflex and an ISO box sort
That's correct.
idea, which now has evolved into the war wagon. And we'll discuss that a little bit too. But I got to tell you, I've never. I not that I sit in on many front of house sound engineer, bass player conversations, but in all my years, I've never been on this level where I've worked with a front of house engineer that is so in tune with what I'm doing, what I'm bringing to the stage, and what they're doing and how that might affect how I'm going to actually play.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's, oh yeah, we got you. You're all set. DI. Yep. Good. Go.
Yeah.
We did a line
Now-
check and
A lot of times we've heard sounds like a bass.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then,
Well,
and then
the irony of it is, I mean, in the past, and I'll say in some of my early days, I was guilty of this. I was absolutely guilty of it. Is this idea that the bass, the bass mic is the backup for the DI. The DI stops working, we'll just switch over and use the mic,
Yeah.
I was like, and after a while, and a lot of this came from working in the studio, a lot, where I was just like, why aren't we doing this out on the road? We do all this work in the studio to get this great tone and this great sound, and then go out there and just do something completely different. It's like, well, I've been known to ask artists this all the time, if they say, well, okay, we're talking about sounds. It's like, well, how'd you get that sound on the record? Well, I had to have this guitar and this amp, and so, well, it's like, well, if you did all the work to get that sound on the record, we're probably going to need to use at least some of those components to get that sound here.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you use single coils to get that sound on the record, we're not going to be able to use humbuckers to get that sound live. It's just not going to work.
Do you think there's a little bit of a perception that, or misconception, I should say, that we worked in this pristine environment in the studio. There's no way we're going to get that sound in an arena, or so it's just kind of like, we'll get it as close as we can. Is there any of that? No. Okay.
No, at least not in my world. And I'll take my cue from Tom Petty here. Right.
Yeah.
He's the classic understated Tom Petty. Hey, Rob, good is good. Doesn't matter where you use it.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just that way. It was like, well, this is how we got it there. Well, this is how we'll do it there. And, this is a part of the thing that drives me a little crazy at times, is this whole thing of, well, that's a controlled environment. This is an uncontrolled environment. So we're okay with using a mediocre sound in the uncontrolled environment.
Yeah, that's great.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we need the best sounds
Yeah.
possible there to have a chance to win,
Yeah. That's, do you find yourself mixing? Well, I'm going kind of backwards here, but obviously when you're doing sound check, the stadium or the venue is empty. How much does that change, and how much do you have to work on the fly as the concert starts and now there's 50, 60,000 people in the arena versus an empty room?
I don't find it that difficult, honestly, especially with virtual sound check today, where I can take a previous night and put it in that room and see how it's going to feel. In the days where we didn't have virtual sound check and we had to use CDs and other things, to kind of get some sense of what the PA is going to sound like, and then put a whole bunch of live microphones in the room with the speakers. Boy, that was really, really hard. But we could, we can, with virtual sound check, you can get so close to where you're going to be. And then once that room fills up, more often than not, it'll make it sound better more often than not. Sure. But then you contend with crowd noise, right? There's some masking that can take place with crowd noise, but I haven't found that it affects the bass guitar all that much. Usually the crowd coming in will dampen the room a little better in the low end, and the low end will actually sound better once the room is full. Okay.
All right. Yeah. I was just curious.
We can track it. I have, not to go down into the rabbit hole science here, but we have live FFT that's running throughout the day, so I can see what the room response is changing as it fills up with people. I can watch it happen.
So. Yep. Okay. That's cool. That's very interesting. Harmony, let's talk about gear a little bit, and we're going to segue this into the War Wagon, but there has obviously you've been part of the Ampeg family for years, and I know you use Ampeg stuff on the road. You use it around town. Bringing gear out on the road versus, and I've heard this relationship between bass players and front of house engineers in the past where, and I won't name any names, but it was just kind of one specific player I asked him, I says, hey, would you be interested in taking the SGT DI out on the road and seeing how that works with, with your gig? He's like, no, he says, the guy that's running front of house, he's an Avalon what is it? You like that's he will not. He's been using the same Avalon for 20 years with this artist. He will not change a thing, sort of thing. How do you approach something like? And this, I guess, this is a question to both Harmoni and Robert. Like, how do you approach something like that? If you have a piece of gear that that you might, both of you might have differing opinions on, but you're strong and like, no, I really want to implement this, or I want to use this piece of gear. How do you approach that?
It's funny because we've had some of those conversations, recently, and even like last year and this year, and that was something that I was really, because I am, I'm such an Ampeg fan on so many levels, and I really wanted to kind of stay true to that, and at the same time, because of the trust that I have in him, I knew that, I didn't want to go, nope, this is my,
Right.
I'm a bass player. I'm using this gear no matter what, even if you tell me, yeah, that's great, but this is actually might sound better, and it might make you sound better, and it might make you sound make you shine. Yeah. So I didn't want to get too married to that. But at the same time, we, because I used to use the, I had an SVT with a fridge,
Sure.
And this was in the very early days when I was in a completely different position on stage. I was a little bit more, I didn't move around as much, and which was a whole other level of, brought some complications with where I was standing on the set right next to the drums, and there was no plexi, which, so they were like, okay, what do we do with her vocal mic? Because she's so close to the drums. And so they,
yeah.
So I had a sled with the fridge underneath me so that because there is something
I remember that
really cool and rock and roll about feeling the air move, which to the point of like miking an amp and going, yeah, but that's cool. I love that sound and that feel. But so then it's kind of evolved into, and then we had that in the ISO box. And we have the SGT DI, and that's kind of become one of the main features along with the War Wagon,
Okay.
But we were kind of like, I remember last year we had, because I was really kind of, married to this idea of wanting to, but there's a few songs where, I want to be able to hit a pedal and go into this kind of a gritty, distorted tone for a couple of moments of a few different songs. And I don't use a ton of pedals, but I was like, I'm feeling it, I'm hearing it in these moments. And so we tried a couple different things. And one of the things that we tried was this Doug Pinnick Tech 2010 pedal. So we used that last year for a couple of moments, and then I've been using the liquefier as well in a couple of moments in some songs. But then this year we just kind of working with Terry T. Fox again and Robert to dial in that Ampeg pedal, and that has become, so Robert, tell me if I'm wrong, but we kind of engage for those moments.
When we went to the pedal, the Ampeg pedal, that's when my thinking started to shift a little bit. Once I heard that box or heard that pedal, I thought, okay, this is a step forward, unquestionably, and it had the mic modeling and the cabinet modeling in it and stuff, And I remember thinking, okay, and the gears started turning. And at some point I started thinking, really what we need to do is get back to an amp. But we need to use this as the front end to the amp. That's what we need to do here. So we're going to replace the cabinet simulation with an actual cabinet, actual microphone. And, that was going to give us some flexibility in terms of, at her station, we could work on the sound, but the amplification was actually sitting off stage somewhere, So, and it worked out fantastic. It took a little tweaking to get it right at the beginning, get the gain structure right on it and stuff, and get it to be loud enough, et cetera. Yeah. But in the end, it was like, there we go. Now we're talking.
But how important is amp simulation or cab simulation, Robert?
I think
it's coming along, or
are you asking what I think of the quality of amp simulation?
Well,
I think
amp
simulation,
how important it is. How important it is.
Well, if you're in an all DI environment, like if you're not going to speaker and microphone, it's
Yep.
the cabinet simulation part of it is crucial,
Mhm.
right? That's a big piece of the sound, no question about it.
Okay.
So yeah, and I'll say the amp modelers and stuff that have come out in recent, I'll say the last 10 years or something, are phenomenal. I mean, they're phenomenal,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
But there's,
Yeah.
you know, in my mind, especially for bass players, and I'm sorry, I'm going to keep harping back to this a little bit because this was kind of the schooling for me on it,
Yeah.
where I really started paying attention to it and taking it way more serious, was working with Tom Petty. Because Tom was very, very sensitive to low frequency on stage, right?
Mhm.
And he, you know, like it could upset the whole show if we weren't really careful. So what it in turn did was make Ron Blair, the bass player, play very timidly through his amp, right? And it became this kind of almost pizzicato kind of bass, you know what I mean? It was weird.
Yeah.
And where he wouldn't let things ring very far and so to get that, like my task was to take that and try to get it to be more like an amp. And you know, like miking the amp just became almost useless
Yeah.
because the amp was so low in volume on stage, you know, all the bleed into the mic was terrible. So,
Yeah.
you know, I ended up doing a lot of amp simulation experiments out front, and Ronnie was okay with it. He was totally okay with it. But again, you know, over time I started thinking, well, you know, what I'm doing right now is actually disconnected from what he's actually doing up there.
Yeah.
It worked for the show,
Yeah.
but in your mind you think, I've got to get these two things connected.
Yeah.
here. And that was like working with Harmony was the next stage of that, you know.
Wow.
That's a really, really great observation to know. That it's like you need two brains having the same medium, focused on the same thing to achieve a goal together. Like you can settle for like this sounds great up front, they'll be fine on stage. Like so you knew that
No.
connected. Yeah. That's
Well,
great.
Harm knows
Yeah.
this from our thing with Daniel Keller. I mean, I kind of went off on that piece of it. It's like, this is all connected. This
Yeah.
is all connected. You can't compartmentalize it. Everybody's part of the ensemble here.
Yeah. Yeah. And from a playing standpoint, it just, like you said, it just makes things more uncomfortable and tougher for the bass player to do their job. If you know, if you can't play a certain way that you're comfortable playing to satisfy, you know, a dynamic or a stage or a sound situation, then that just makes it even more difficult.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I'm obviously, you know, Ron's an Ampeg guy too. So I
Yeah.
remember, you know, the Heritage rigs and actually another artist that I know you've worked with, Robert, with Jackson Brown, Bob Glob.
Mhm.
Last time we saw Jackson here in Boston with Bob, I remember he had a V4B and a single 12 cap, and the whole concert I'm looking at the V4B and the pilot light is red, which means it's in standby.
Mhm.
So at the end of the show, I can't, you know, I said, Bob, what's, you know, great show. Of course, going to see Bob is like a school and bass, you know.
100%.
I said, why was your amp on standby? He goes, oh man, he says, and he was very apologetic. I was like, you do not have to apologize to me, dude. But he was like, yeah, he says, Jackson's very sensitive about bass volume on stage.
Oh wow.
He says, so, you know, everything is in ears
Mhm.
and the amp is there just as a backup or a standby, just in case I need more stage volume or something goes awry. I can just pop the amp on. But
Wow.
it was kind of the same thing. Like he was like,
yeah.
even just having a single 12
Yeah.
on a stage like that, he was very sensitive to it. I was like, man, that's really got to mess with your psyche on how you're playing. He goes, well, you know, Bob's Bob. He could play.
Yeah,
good
and at that point you got to serve the gig, right? If
Right.
the main guy is getting messed up by this,
yeah,
we got to do whatever it takes to solve
Yeah.
this issue, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not. I mean, it's going to be sacrilege to say this, but at that point, it's not about the bass.
yeah.
About keeping the singer going during the show. You know,
It's about keeping the bass player employed.
well, that too. Yes.
You're melding the non-cab, just a DI sound of the preamp on the SGTDI with the actual mic sound of an amp, right?
We're using that pedal sound, the settings that we're getting there, taking that out directly into the amplifier. So it's the front end for the amp.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we decided to go back in through the actual preamp of the amp because everybody there thought it sounded better. We had a little more like gross tone control on the bass with the tone settings on the 15. So yeah, it just seemed to really come to life once we did that.
That's cool.
Can I show pictures of the War Wagon now?
Of course. Yeah, of course. We might as well.
This is,
damn
first of
thing.
all,
Great name.
I'm just putting a disclaimer here that we are showing there are some products in the War Wagon that are highly sought after.
That's right.
But very discontinued.
Much to my chagrin.
Well, Dom and I are working on that.
Yeah.
And we are definitely working on that. So as I go through the pictures, if you could just kind of explain to me what's going on here, because I can't have an idea what's going on, but just to clarify, this is your front of house rig. This is what goes out to front of house, if I'm correct.
Well, yeah, the mic signals come out to me. Yeah. And that's the only bass sound during the show is with the combination of these two mics on this cabinet. We print all the DIs for the guys in post if they want to use them. But my sound at the stadium is these two microphones on that cabinet.
Ah, okay. All right. So let me see if I can do this.
Have you trademarked War Wagon? If not,
I think John Wayne's got that one. I don't know.
There might be an Ampeg War Wagon coming through.
Okay. So I think this is coming through here, right? I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
All right. So that is on top of the isolation portion of the rig. And that is two SVT preamps, tube preamps, and one SVT DI, right?
Ah, I see.
So
I'm assuming the mic pre's are feeding the mics.
Yeah. So the Neumann and the Shure go through the SVT mic pre's, and the pedal, only the pedal, goes through the SVT DI. So there is a print that takes place of the two mics, plus basically the input to the amplifier gets printed.
Okay.
In case they want to reamp or do something like that in post.
Let me see if I can page through here. So again, just another view of the 3DI sitting on top of the mic box.
Yeah, and we kind of designed it where those could be removed easily. Like it'd be hard to see here, I think, but there's a set of, screw downs on that, and those three DIs or those three pieces actually sit on a sled that you can just unscrew and take off. And if you had to do anything with it. Yeah, this was all built back at my place. And here
I was going to ask where you constructed this, Robert.
In the room right next door here. It's right behind me here. Yeah.
So now this is a PF20 sitting on top of, is this a 115 or a 210, Robert?
115.
115. And it's kind of firing into this mic box, if I'm reading this right?
Yeah, I think there might be some pictures of, because, keep in mind here's a little bit of the goal here. It's kind of twofold. One is, and it's just my personal take on it, bass amps in an isolation box do not work. Okay, you cannot have it in a completely enclosed environment and make that actually work. It's too many standing waves. It just ends up sounding so weird for the microphone. My goal of this was not isolation per se for the bass rig. It's not quiet around this. There's a lot of leakage in it.
Okay.
But with these half rounds that you see here, that they are a combination of absorption and diffusion. Okay. So what it's creating is a very stable environment for those two microphones in there. Okay. That's the goal here. So it's not for it to be quiet. It's not about it being quiet. It's about it being isolated and a solid environment for the microphones.
Okay. So it's not necessarily a sealed box.
No, it's not sealed in any way. Yeah.
Okay.
There's lots of leakage in it, which is by design.
I hope I'm not giving up any trade secrets here.
No, not at all. I mean, this is public domain. You can share all of this.
I mean, it just, again, just the level of commitment.
I was going to say, what front of house engineer is going to spend time on the off season building a box like this for the bass? I mean, Robert Scovill, but
somebody that wants the bass to be really good.
Yeah.
Easier in the long run. I feel like it's
wow, that's cool.
So those are the 4 half rounds that you're referring to.
Yeah. So there's one of the cool things that happens is, and I didn't predict this. I mean, I didn't put a lot of quote unquote science into it, but one of the things I noticed with it, and I think somebody asked this in the in the chat here, is what did you do to improve the movement up the neck on the bass? And there is a level of compression that takes place in this environment right here that I didn't anticipate. That is really good.
That's cool.
Really good. So, you know, I hardly use, I mean, I don't use a whole lot of compression on the bass or limiting on the bass out front. I mean, it's all kind of being taken care of in this environment here.
Wow. Yeah, it was Rich Hill. And Rich has dialed in quite a few times too. But he said, send me an invoice. So it's an open invoice. Rich, I don't know. M&Ms and brown liquor might not cover it. So I'm just saying.
Depends on how good the brown liquor is.
Yeah.
What
Are
vintage?
you using any compression from SGTDI at all? That like
very minimal. Like we felt like it was a little heavy-handed when we were using it, so we just relied on it very little.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but you know, again, this kind of gets back to that idea of connecting the player to their sound, because I think what's happened with Harmony, you can back me up or tell me I'm full of baloney here, but you know, I think once she started playing this thing and started to see how alive it was, her playing actually got a little more compressed dynamically. Like she plays a lot more in the tone.
Sure.
You know, than just slapping crazily on the thing, trying to get it to react, you know?
It wasn't so much of a struggle for me to try to, you know, get the sound that I was wanting to create, because it doesn't always translate, you know, in the moment, you know, in the excitement and everything. But, you know, but with this, it's so incredibly responsive that I had to kind of like relax in my playing a little. I didn't have to work as hard to get.
That's the word I was looking for right there.
Yeah.
It just happens now, which is pretty amazing.
You know, for me, it was about dialing in the show. You know, I mean, I'll say this, especially for doing stadiums. You know, one of the hardest things to do and accomplish in stadium is to get the audio to mix the scale of what you're seeing. You know, like you're seeing people that are 40 feet tall on IMAG.
Right.
It's like, you better be able to hear that.
Yeah.
You know, and Harmony is on screen, rightly or wrongly, all the time.
I've seen a lot of feeds.
I've witnessed it.
And I say the same thing. You would think it's her show, I think. I don't know.
But I'm being totally serious here. I mean, she is such a visual piece of the show that it doesn't make sense to not be able to hear what she's playing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's got to be there. Otherwise, the audience doesn't connect to it then, you know?
Yeah.
And I remember that being part of the thought process here. And, you know, this is part of the trust thing. It's like, I remember saying to you, we've got to build a bigger sound. Like, we've got to get you in the band sonically now.
Yeah.
I think I even said that to you after we got the War Wagon working and we tested it a little bit. I was like, welcome to the band.
That's great.
I gotta ask, Harmony, do they still have the big head Harmony in the back that they threw up on stage?
I have that in my, Robert doesn't even know about this. I don't think I have this in my wardrobe case. At some point there was a show that, this was years ago.
It was Foxborough.
It was Foxborough. Somebody came out with like I think it was like a 3 or 4 foot tall cardboard head of me, like an actual photo of me, just
I have pictures of it.
And then he saw it and of course went down and pointed at it and looked at me and grabbed it. And then
I gotta have that
the entire show. So every time, you know, Coop would take like a front of house camera shot, there was my, you know, 3 foot head just leaning up against the drum riser. I was like,
I've got it somewhere in my photo library. I took many pictures of it though, and said, it was. My wife was sitting next to me. She goes, "Somebody has a big head Harmony on stage," and it's like, so.
I'm so happy. I'm grateful. Robert knows this, that our boss, like Kenny, has such a great sense of humor about all this stuff, and he is so comfortable in his own level of fame that he allows everybody in the band to shine and to kind of have these moments, and he's not you know, worried,
he's not threatened by it.
in any way. So it's amazing, you know.
He's such I've seen Kenny a couple of times actually with you, Harmony, and I mean the energy and just you can always tell when the artist that's performing on stage, you can kind of tell from the vibe of the musicians that are playing with the artist what kind of vibe that artist puts back into the band and puts back into the audience. You can always tell. And looking at Kenny perform, obviously you guys are having a ton of fun. I've never seen a guy run across a 50-foot stage and up and down and around. And
it's wind sprints, man.
Yeah. I mean, like the guy, he's obviously in great shape. I would assume everybody in the band has to be up to some level of fitness to try and keep up with him at some point. But yeah, it's just, you know, it's a great show to see, and it's enjoyable. And there's, you know, anyways, I could go on and on.
Show, you know, I really feel, and that's what he wants. I mean, we do use some tracks, you know, but there's a couple moments. But I mean, honestly, it really is a rock and roll show.
Yeah,
It's really cool, and he loves that, and that's what he wants. And no show is different. You know, it's not one of those shows where, you know, every night on stage, there's, you know, Nick's going to play the same fill, and Danny's and Kenny Greenberg's going to play, of all people.
My gosh, Greenberg's played a different solo in every song now for the past 10 days.
It's incredible.
It's unbelievable.
Oh my God.
It's like, what are we getting tonight, Kenny?
Yeah.
I love it. And
me too.
Chesney is just so hip to allowing us the free reign to kind of to do that and stretch and be spontaneous, because it's oh my God, hold on, what a concept. We're a band playing with each other in the moment on stage, and it sounds I know it's a crazy.
Who'd have thunk it?
Stop it. You're not.
And at the very least, you have a bar and grill on stage. So
that's right. You know about Stone's Bar and Grill.
I know about the bar and grill.
Yeah. Bar first.
Bar and
grill
exactly.
Second. Yes.
So one of the questions when Robert was talking about the War Wagon and how you approach your performance on stage, Harmony, the question I wanted to ask was, like, you know, when you're in your own practice environment, like I'm sitting here in my studio, I'll have a bass, I'll be playing stuff, and it just, you know, I'm not digging in, I'm not in a performance setting, there's no anxiety. It's just kind of like I can hear everything perfectly. But then when you go out on stage, obviously things change a bit, your technique changes, you get a little nervous, you stiffen up, you tighten up, you're like, and next thing you know, like all those really cool runs and licks that you're doing in your practice studio at least in my case, I physically can't play them, because the way it translates in sound, everything has changed. With this new setup, do you find a lot of that, I'll call it anxiety for lack of a better term, has gone away? Like what you're hearing in your ears and on stage is basically the same scenario what you're feeling in your little practice studio when you're just warming stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, more now than ever, honestly, because it's so responsive, more so than it ever has been before. And honestly, I got to give props to our monitor engineer, Brian Baxley, Opie, as we call him.
Opie.
I think everybody in the band would say this, and they have much more experience wearing in-ears than I did before 10 years ago getting this gig. But I've never, for someone who's playing bass and singing, you know, those are two things that I've heard people say with having in-ears. You're either going to love them or hate them, you know, singing and playing bass, because everything, depending on the ears and your engineer, everything can really kind of get lost, and it can become a burden, and you end up taking one out, which is not recommended, especially in these gigs, because it's just a cavern and slap back. But Opie really dials that in such a way, and Robert's got it. They've worked together to create this sound, and it's just so responsive to me that I don't have to work as hard to kind of get what I'm wanting to achieve. You know, it just happens. You know, I think my biggest battle with myself is that even after, you know, 10 years, almost 10 years of doing this, that I still don't consider myself to be a 5-string player. So that's the biggest arm wrestle for me on stage is going.
Well, I'll tell you something. That was I'm gonna let the cat out of the bag here. This was part of my agenda doing this. I promise you it was. Was I needed to get people to understand how good a freaking bass player Harmoni Kelley is.
Oh man,
that's cool.
It's true.
I mean, that was the epiphany for me after the first year. It was like, wow, this is not thuddy thud country bass. This girl can actually play, man.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
come on. I mean, people need to experience this here. So
Yeah.
that was, I swear to you, that was part of the agenda there.
Good
You know,
for you.
I'll give you a little interesting anecdote here on ear monitors and bass players.
Please do.
Because I've over the years I've gone round and round about in-ears and players and stages, etc. And I've been in this now since the very, very earliest days of going in-ear. Like I remember us hybriding these crazy systems together that I look back on and I just go, what artist ever agreed to walk out on stage with that in their ear? I was just like, oh my God. But when I was mixing Rush, we did the transition from being live stage, monitors, etc., to going to in-ears for Getty. Right?
Okay.
And
Wow.
Alex came along a little bit later, but Getty. And the one thing that I remember changed, I don't want to over dramatize it and say dramatically,
Yeah.
but it was a big change, was that as soon as he was on in-ears, the bottom end of the PA tightened up because now he was absolutely in time with the drums and his fretting was better.
Really?
Like you never heard any clunky fretting because he heard it with so much diction in his ears. There was never a missed fret. So all of us, I mean, just that move, the bass, the drum sound, the bass sound, everything improved in the PA.
Yep.
I was like, okay, I think I might be for this. I'm okay with this.
Do you have recommendations, either one of you, for exactly what in-ears a bassist should have, or a bassist singer? Because asking for a friend.
Me. He's
So
asking.
I've tried a bunch, and I've been unhappy with like all of them. So.
Yeah, I mean they're not cheap, but I do think it's at some point it's worth it. But I use the JH Audio, and mine the one that I have the Roxanne's.
Okay.
But I'm a fan of JH Audio because I know there's something about it that it's got enough drivers to hold the bass, and I just feel like
It's hard to
especially
get
if you go to the Pearl system with the JH Audio thing. Do you guys know about this thing?
No,
Where
where's
it's an extra DSP pack, that plugs into your ears. And, I use it. I mean, I use it as reference checks for mixes. Like every day that I'm listening and reviewing mixes, I'm doing it through that. And I mean, you want 30 hertz in your ears? Yeah, no problem. Just dial it up.
Really?
Wow.
Huh?
I mean, it's for real. It's for real.
Okay.
It's really good to hear, because it's hard to, when you mentioned like Harmony, you finally feeling that like nuance of playing and relaxed, and it's just like kind of flowing. I equate that to hearing like this just open, as if you don't have in-ears, as if there's an amp next to you. It's like that kind of feel.
Yeah.
I was always curious, like what for in-ears for bass and singing and bass, it's so hard to find that balance of like it's open and you want to almost feel the low, but you don't want that boxy like to sing to,
With your head voice.
I mean, I know that the ears are the quality of the actual ears are a huge part of that. But again, I mean, it's so much is riding on the mix that's coming into my ears, and Brian is just does an amazing job of that. And also it's a battle of work, especially when, if we've had time off for 6 months or 8 months or whatever, and then we're coming back in to sound check, and we're sort of getting used to putting our ears in, and what that feels like, what that sounds like. And it's also like, for me especially, how hot do I want my vocal in my ear? Because there's this spot where Robert knows this, where because he's really done a great job of teaching us on these particular mics where to sit, how far away we want to get, and then, but also it's like, if my voice is too hot in my ears, then I'm going to have a tendency to kind of back off, and then so it's like the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Robert's really done a great job of teaching all of it, even these veteran guys that have been playing it for years and years, and but it's like, no, we need to start over and like reframe how to do this.
It's the concept that not all the mixing is done at the console.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very studio oriented there, where you go, okay, I can make the most improvements in my sound quality if I deal with the source. If I can just get everybody to sing properly into those mics, they're going to sound a lot better. There's nothing I can do at the console for it. So.
And I'm starting to I'm starting to realize this because there's a big bug flying around my studio right now.
There's not, this is just you, buddy.
He's
just part of the show. Let it ride, man. He's part of the show.
I'll let him live his life. It's going to be a short one.
He's living his best life. Let him be part of the podcast.
As long as it doesn't land in my water. No, so I'm starting to do more singing with the group that I'm playing with. And one thing that I noticed is, like you were saying, Harmony, I've gotten used to having my voice hot in my ears. But then I notice when I step away from the mic, it's picking up everything because I'm not blocking the mic at that point. But also, and I don't know if you're finding this, Dom, and you're finding this, Harmony, I have a hard time singing pitches, like finding my pitch with in-ears versus a monitor. We'd be in rehearsal with monitors, and I'm hitting all my harmonies.
Yeah,
I put my ears, and it's like I can't hear pitch. Is that a common thing?
Yeah, I'll give this to you. So, because this happens all the time in the studio, where you have a singer with both cans on, and constantly pushes sharp. Have them take one ear off where they hear themselves and their head tone, bang, right back in key. And it's always a concern of mine with ear monitors. It's just like, okay, well now we're back to that both ears closed thing, and the volume of your voice, Harmony has hit right on it here, is so crucial to the success of this here. Like you've got to get it to a point where because you can hear yourself, the diction's so great in your ears. You got to get it to the point where you still project, because everything around you is noise, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So if the signal is not there, the more quiet you sing, the louder the noise is going to appear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
You've got to turn that tide there a little bit and get more voice. Petty used to just hate me for saying this. Hate me. We had more drop down arguments about this than anything. He's like, I need to get some of the stage bleed down. I said, no, you don't. You just need to step on the gas. You guys sing the damn song.
Wow.
Come on. And you got to sing into the microphone, not down here like this.
That is amazing.
And as a singer, you want all those little nuances you hear in your studio monitors.
Yeah.
I think it came close to punching me once when I said that.
But that was my biggest issue on this last tour, Dino, was fighting the second I would walk away from my mic and just have all cymbal wash. And hearing that in a theater, I used to I was like getting upset with the drummer. It's like thinking he's so off from the click, but it's just that delay of like catching all the skills and everything. And I'm just like,
there's ways to deal with it. I'm not for putting switches on it. Like I've developed, I designed a system for Def Leppard when I was doing them in the round, where I actually went out and bought some burglar mats, believe it or not, burglar mats. And I had we kind of designed this little system where if they stepped on this, it would send a tone down the mic line. We'd bring that into a noise gate, and that would be the key for the noise gate on the mic. Because in that situation, there was 8 mics in the round for 2 singers.
That's great.
And I never knew where they were going to be.
Yeah.
So, with a noise gate on it, you can actually set the attack and release them. So it felt like a fader move, not a switch going off and on.
Right. Yeah.
And it worked fantastic. It's still sitting in my little warehouse museum over here somewhere,
Wow. That's ingenious. That's ingenious.
Yeah. Well, you could do it today in digital consoles. If you set it up, you can do that very thing, But so there's ways to deal with it, and, a lot of times, and, I'm going to go off on a diatribe here. The answer is not to put the drummer in an aquarium.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you for that word, for that wisdom, Robert. Because like I said, I will admittedly say I'm a newer singer. I don't it's a 4-piece country band, and I'm starting to take on more responsibility because I want to be a better musician. I want to be able to sing. So I've been working on that. Thankfully, the artist that I'm working with she's extremely patient and she's always helping me. But the last gig, I pulled my ears out. I was like, I know I'm singing. I can hear myself. I can hear my voice. I can't hit the pitch that I'm supposed to be hitting.
Yeah. There's a magic point with it, like if it's too loud, typically you're going to sing flat.
Yeah.
If it's not loud enough, you're going to push sharp in order to hear yourself.
That's
so
crazy.
there's a place.
Yeah.
And it's important to remember in all of this, not to sound like the old curmudgeon here, but there was a time, and you can go back and see an awful lot of video of this, where there were no monitors and people sang perfectly in pitch.
Yeah.
Perfectly in key.
Right. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
Now, Harmony, in your ears, you're getting the war wagon, or that is what's going to yours.
That was the mandatory part. Yes.
Yeah. Because I know some guys will, like, Dom and I have often talked about this, especially with the SGT DI. It's like, no, I send the SGT DI to my monitor or my ears, and then I send the DI out of the amp, or however else we send the front of house. It's like, well, I would always think the sound that you want on stage that's coming from your amp is the sound that you want in your ears. Otherwise, why do you have that amp on stage?
Ding, 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 ding. Yeah.
So
it's like, that's where to me, the cohesiveness comes in. Like, why would I want to hear something different than what I'm giving him at front of house? And I want to, I want to have a general sense of what the actual amp sounds like. And
I've gone around and around about this with guitar players, and other engineers as well, talking about, do you do guitar effects at the front of house, or do you rely on the guitar player to do them with pedals? And it's my answer, just, it makes my head explode sometimes. It's like, of course the guitar player is doing it on stage. He has to hear those things. It's absolutely going to impact how he plays.
Of course.
But I can get a better sounding reverb at front of house. I don't care. That's where sound quality is, I want to say meaningless, but way down the list of priorities. I've got to get the player connected to the sound.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Joe O'Hurley doing all of the edges delays at front of house?
Right.
No.
Right.
Please no.
Yeah.
On that topic though, Dino, I will say this, Harmony, I asked Harmony if she trusted me, early. I had to do a similar thing with Bax, with Opie and Phil, the two monitor engineers, when we switched over to this. Because I said to Bax, I said, okay, this is what needs to go to her ears now, not the DI anymore. This is what needs to go. She needs to hear this in the same way that we hear it. And over time, I think now, Opie has picked up on it, and he bought off on it immediately. He was like, yeah, I get it. I will do it. But I think the other players now are hearing the war wagon, not the DI now, because it sits better with the guitars,
Yeah.
Especially with the drummer. I'm assuming the drummer's probably loving that a lot more.
Oh, I would think so. Yeah, I would think Nick is hearing that for sure.
Yeah. Wow. Do you still have the SVT under the stage, Harmony, or did that go away? I know you had an A10 laying under your grate.
I still have it in my KC kind of, our locker.
Yeah.
In the event that you pull it out.
You can put it up there, Harmony. Just don't plug it in, okay?
About 10. Maybe 10.
I move around so much on that stage that for me to have something that is blowing air at me. I mean, it's a great in concept and theory, but I never am standing in the same place for more than a song, and that's kind of the point. It's like and I didn't realize that until now. Over the last 9 years, I've understood more and more that this is it's a theatrical show. It's a rock and roll show. Everybody that can be, with the exception of our drummer and our keyboard player, everybody's moving around, and it's a dance, and we're playing off each other, and it's never really the same choreography. It's all just kind of in the moment, and there's plenty, it's awesome.
One of the coolest side effects of this whole thing, and I think Harmony will agree to it here, is that the bass rig is infinitely more dynamic now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the show is kind of like that, where we're going from just 3 balls to the wall guitars in an AC/DC cover, all the way down to no shoes, something like that's got to have that clean, really tone worthy bass. Mm-hmm. And that is way more a function of her now than the sound. Like if she's digging in, it's the sound we want. We may put some additional distortion on it if we want to do it. I do that. Mm-hmm. But if she pulls back now and plays, it's a much more pure tone. It's not the growly, thing. I'm going to put Harmony on the spot here.
Uh-oh.
Did you do your homework? Did you listen to that D. Murray bass sound?
So I listen to it in my car stereo, but I feel like I need to put ears in and listen to it.
All right. So between now and the time that I see you on Thursday, your assignment is to go listen to the bass sound on Love Lies Bleeding in My Hands.
I will. I'm in. I'll do it. I'll do it.
Okay. Because, I told you this. I listened to that song for 20 years before I actually realized, oh my God, that's the bass guitar doing that.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's one of the best
D. Murray, right?
distorted bass sounds I've ever heard. So.
Yeah. That's all D.
When I see you on Thursday, I will say, Robert, I did it.
Go past Funeral for a Friend. You don't need that bit.
Yep.
Get into Love Lies Bleeding in My Hands.
That's I'm writing it down too. I'm like, that's.
Wait till you hear it. You're just going to be, because you think of Elton. You don't think of Elton as these really aggressive sounds per se. When you hear it, you're going to go, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in a lot of ways, you don't think of bass. I mean, sometimes you listen to bass and it's like, well, wait a second. It's almost like like I forget what effect they come out. It's like, wait a second. I always thought that was a clean bass sound.
Oh yeah.
And then you listen to it, it's like, that's not clean at all.
Oh, that's the school right there. That's the school. I had that happen to me pretty early in my career. Have we got time for this? I'll give you another, because this plays right to this. Harmony heard me tell this story with Keller. So in the 80s, I was at Whistler Studios in Holland. We were mixing some live Def Leppard stuff that we had done. And in the studio right next to us was the guy, not the band, but a guy who was mixing Queensryche at the time.
Okay.
And they were doing some stuff for the new record. And I kind of walked, the control room door was open for a little bit, and I knew the guys. So, and they were playing some stuff, and I walked in there and I was like, wow, man, that sounds fantastic. And not at my behest or anything, he was working on something and soloed up the bass. And my jaw hit the floor. I was like, I could not believe how distorted that bass was.
Wow.
And slip it right back into the track. It just sounded like this glossy, gooey, beautiful tonal bass. I was like, my head just exploded. I was like, okay, I got to know how you're doing that.
Well,
and it changed my approach on bass from that day forward. I just started thinking, okay, if we're talking about distorted guitars and bass, that's the answer. I'm sorry. That's the answer.
Yeah. I mean, I tell people all the time, like the SVT and an A10 cab probably isn't the prettiest bass sound you'll ever hear.
Soloed
until you sit it in a mix.
Yeah.
Or a live mix, or it's just that's why that amp.
I mean, I hate to say it, but that was the basis of my question to Harmony is like, do you trust me? Because you're not going to believe what I'm going to ask you to do.
Yeah. But that's
Somebody thought you'd be doing a stadium tour with a 20-watt head, like, you know what I mean? Like, the approach that you would think.
Yeah, I mean, that's, and again, it all comes down to trust. Like your story with Tom Petty, you know what I mean? He's got to trust you. You're the guy that's getting his sound out. You know what I mean? And if he's got bad mic technique, whatever, but there's a level of trust that I trust you to tell me what I need to do to get my performance out.
Well, and it's earned. It's not given.
Of course.
I mean, for as giving as Harmony was with it, I think I still had to earn it over time and
of course
and prove what we were doing was right.
Yeah. Well, like the guy, the gig that I had this past weekend when he says, no, I get your sound. I'm like, I'm not trusting you right now. Like, I'm really not trusting. Yeah, right. Who are you? Can you give me a monitor channel so I can at least just mix my own in-ears on my phone and that, Oh yeah, that I have all the apps on my phone. So when I show up to a venue, it's like I've got the M32, I've got the Allen and Heath, I've got the Mackie. Just give me my access to my own monitor. But a lot of times, if we have time, they'll dial in and it works.
Yeah, a competent guy can do it too. I mean, there's a lot of competent people out there. So.
Yeah, man, this has been an absolute lesson, pleasure. What can I say?
So much fun
and education. and we will, when we repost this stream, everybody, we will put all of the appropriate links on Facebook and YouTube for Harmony's website, Robert's website, all their social media. Everything will be published in the comments, and you'll be able to see pictures of the War Wagon. Who came up with the name War Wagon, by the way?
Well, it's a thing between me and Terry, and we kind of have this thing, right?
Okay.
Where he and I could probably write down the script from every late 50s, early 60s John Wayne movie. We just know them inside and out. Matter of fact, this drove a whole nother conversation where I remember having this conversation with Terry when we labeled it the War Wagon, because it's after a John Wayne movie.
Sure.
You know the movie?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
They build this turret up on a stage. You know, it's like, oh, it's War Wagon. So we started thinking, I asked him one day, I was like, okay, do you think Wyatt is more Rio Bravo or El Dorado? Which do you think? Which movie do you think he's more like? Is he more like James Caan, or is he more like Dean Martin? So we had this ongoing thing for ages. We were going to name all the stations on the stage after John Wayne movies. So
that's awesome.
I think that could still be a thing.
It could still be a thing. That could still happen.
That, my association with John Wayne movies is the guy that was mowing my front yard at 3:30 in the morning on Sunday. Was a huge John Wayne fan. So I had to watch John Wayne movies.
Well, clearly Harmony is Maureen O'Hara. So that's an automatic. I mean, that's McClintock awesome. Over there. So no problem.
That is so cool.
Don will have to get you out at some point. I know Dino talked about getting out to one of the Foxborough shows, because we've got 3 of them. We're playing Gillette Stadium 3 days.
Exactly, 3, yeah.
I feel like we should do, have you out and do like a little rig rundown of the War Wagon in person or something.
100%.
So I'm looking at my social calendar right now. It's pretty empty. It looks like the 24th.
Yeah.
Falls between 2 of my gigs. So the 24th, if it's all right, we'll obviously talk before then, but I'll come down and we'll kind of we can't call it a rig.
That's right.
But we'll go through and take some,
wagon. We can call that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'll look forward to that. That's on. Yeah, it's on a Saturday on the 24th. Rach and I will come down, and Rach can roll her eyes at me at when we start talking about gear. She'll be at the bar and grill.
Perfect.
At the bar
and
grill.
Yes.
You can't leave out the questions. I want to know the answers. I know Harmony's probably already done a version of this, but I want to get Robert's answers too.
Okay. All right. So
speaking of grilling.
Yeah, it's a quick 10 hit 'em and run type questions.
Oh boy, I'm horrible.
I'll listen to me, Boston. I'll let you answer individually.
Wow, you're wicked smart.
Yeah, let's not go crazy now. All right, so 10 questions. You see if I can find them. You would think I would have them like readily available, Dom. This is. Where did I put them? Oh, here it is. 10 rapid fire. Okay. So a lot of these are bass player questions, but they're also, some of them pertain to travel too. So P bass or jazz bass?
Who's going first?
All right, let's do this. Robert, you go first, and then Harmony will answer. So we'll go in that succession.
Depends on style of music.
Okay.
All right.
P-bass.
Music dependent.
Okay. Passive or active electronics?
In what part?
In the bass. In the bass. Yeah, on
passive,
board.
Please.
Okay.
Passive, definitely.
Okay. Round wounds or flats? Regarding strings.
Depends on the song. Depends on the part.
I'm saying depends on the part. I love flats. But for this gig, I play rounds. So.
Rounds. Yep.
Yeah. Rounds are part of that sound. Sorry, rounds are part of that distortion.
Yeah. B15 or SVT?
Ooh,
Well, I know what I think now.
You gotta
I'm
let
sold.
us know.
Yeah.
Okay.
B15 for me now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Harmony?
I'm going to go B15.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cable or wireless? And I know for this gig, obviously the answer, but do you prefer cable or wireless?
Cable, 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 cable. And if you don't have a cable, please use a cable.
Okay.
But for this gig, it's fun to run around.
Yeah, but
Yes.
yeah.
Agreed.
I would not want to have to page Harmony's cable. I'll say that. I would not want that job.
Pick or fingers? I know it depends on the song.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, fingers mostly, but yeah, depends on the song.
Yeah.
IEMs or floor wedges?
Oh.
As she's spitting right now.
As a front of house engineer, I'll say IEMs, and if you want to use wedges, please don't plug them in.
I love your answers. These are classic.
Because I come from like the little club scene in Austin where
everything's. But no, it's. I should qualify my answer because there is an element of wedges that absolutely works for people.
Yeah.
And for Petty, he finally got into using one ear and one wedge, which sounds ludicrous to people, but he did it right.
Yeah.
Right. This was only the diction in his ears. It was not a big mix or anything.
Okay.
Only diction in his voice.
Now Harmony's singing.
And he made it work great.
I know. I'm like,
yeah.
Years for this gig, it's changed my whole perception of the way that all works. But yeah. So I'm an in-ear fan if it's the right in-ear with the right monitor.
I'm an in-ear fan as long as the concept of ensemble is respected in that ear mix.
Yeah.
And it doesn't disconnect you from the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great answer.
Do those two things and I'm fine with ear mixes.
That being said, I was going to say with stadiums and such, do you have ambient feature on your in-ears? Mm-hmm. Are you letting stuff bleed in?
The monitor guys have mics that they can feed up into it.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. I think we have like 22 channels of audience mics right now.
Wow.
You don't sound like you're in a vacuum. You're actually like kind of in the stadium.
Immersive. Yeah.
It is.
We didn't usually. We need a jar for every time the word immersive is used. Like
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Read my next month's article in Live Sound International.
I owe you $1.
It's like a sponsor.
Pedals or no pedals?
Use as many pedals as you want. If that's what it takes to get the sound, that's what we use.
Yeah.
And please use them on stage. Don't rely on me to do it up front.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. Like I've always been kind of a meat and potatoes. Like I really thought like, you can get the sound you want and with your fingers and the bass and the strings, and the pickups straight into the amp, which is true. And I think there's magic to that, but I'll never forget the first time I saw Justin Meldal Johnson play with Beck. And he had this great, crazy big pedal board, and he was sometimes he'd play with his thumb, sometimes he'd palm mute, sometimes he'd play. But he was doing all the things, and everything that he was doing made sense for the song in the moment.
Right.
And I was like, oh my God, you can do all of those things, and it's whatever makes sense for the song.
Yeah. That's
Agreed.
why he's Justin Meldal Johnson.
No, what a concept.
I know.
I mean, it also comes down to this idea, just to expand on that a little bit, is I've run into this all the time where a guitar player and bass player get your sound together. Well, they'll get their sound together and it'll be a great sound. Has nothing to do with what's actually going to work in the mix.
Yeah.
So that's kind of my filter that needs to be put on it. It's like, well, that's great, but there's two other guitar players playing here as well. I mean, we got to find what's going to fit here.
Yeah. Yep. Great point. Okay. Window or aisle?
Oh.
Window.
Wow.
Window. Period. Yes.
Wow. You're both sleepers.
I know I'm a sleeper.
sleepers. And if I need to use the restroom, I'm sorry, that's your inconvenience, not mine.
Well,
Sorry.
that's why I'm an aisle guy.
Same. Oh,
I'm an aisle guy in the back of the plane.
I have no problem, asking someone, please stand up so I can go to the
And I
restroom.
have no problem getting up for them either. I'm old because I understand. So,
Yeah.
high bunk or low bunk?
Middle bunk.
Wow.
Middle driver's side for sure. Middle driver's side.
Okay. Wow.
I mean, we have condo bunks in our bus. So
Yeah, I was going to say you're talking about two different classes of bunks here. On the
Like-
band bus, there's only an upper or lower choice.
you know,
Down in steerage, there's less choices.
I was going to say I take the back bench in the Sprinter van if it's up to me, or I just lay the cabinet on its side and I sleep on that.
There you go. Now you're talking.
I have slept not safely, but in the floorboard of a 15 passy van on a deadhead from Chicago back to Austin, without stopping.
Boom.
I will, whatever you got to do to make it happen. So I can't even believe it. Condo.
Well, after 40 years of touring, I can tell you without any hesitation, I can sleep anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
Anywhere. I can go to
Yep.
sleep. No
And
problem.
after 40 years of touring, you deserve that condo bunk too. By the way, so,
That's
gonna
right.
Say.
That's what I'm talking about right there.
Okay. There's two more questions, but the black. This addresses what kind of a bass Ampeg rig you like to see. So black with white piping, or the old blue and silver anniversary.
Ooh,
I like the black with white piping.
I
Okay.
agree. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, I agree.
Okay. All right.
I mean, for me, there are two colors of shirts generally. There's black and dark black. So,
And that's pretty much it.
yeah, I mean, it's light black on a sunny day.
Last question. This is kind of evolved. The original question was, where do you get the best chicken sandwich on tour? But a lot of people don't eat meat. So when you're touring, where is your favorite place? What's a memorable place to eat? What's your favorite place when you're going someplace?
I think Dino's Steakhouse in Chicago is one of my favorites. That's I try to get that on every time I'm in Chicago, although we didn't do it this time.
I'm just thinking about, I was just talking to Sean about him potentially coming out to some of these Foxborough shows and maybe taking a trek into Boston proper. And
Yeah.
I don't know where, but going to find some legit fresh seafood.
Yeah.
Oh, Harmony.
That
You
would
know,
be
and
my second choice for sure.
I know you, Dino, you've got some good suggestions for
If it's
me.
on the water and they have a picnic bench, that's where you want to eat. I'm just gonna. I'll say that you don't want a fancy restaurant. You want a picnic bench on the water, so you can throw the shells in the water.
Perfect.
I love that.
If
Let's
Sean
make that
doesn't
happen. I mean, forget the War Wagon tour. Let's go down.
I was serious. We'll bring the war wagon with us. I got a pickup truck. We can throw it in the back. But seriously, Sean doesn't come through. You let me know. Sean, you said Sean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let
You'll
me.
meet him at some point. So
I get you covered.
in Gillette at Gillette.
Yeah, I got you covered.
It's a winner.
Awesome.
It's a winner. Maybe I'll just. You know what? I could always just bring lobster rolls down for you guys too.
Don't not do that. I mean,
you gotta do that. Dino, I'm coming now, whether you like it or not.
It's a party. It's
Yeah.
a New England lobster party.
look, we'll put a little East Coast into Tom's Bar and Grill. We have some lobster rolls there, along with hamburgers and hot dogs.
There you go. Oh man, I'm looking forward to it now. Not that I wasn't before. I'm looking forward to it even more now. Man, Robert, Harmony, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a lesson in so many things. It's been entertaining. It's been a heck of a lot of fun too.
Yeah, thank you, man. That's really great time.
I really, at some point down the road, have you guys back on. Maybe if the future in fact, this is something we didn't talk about, and I know we're way over time here, but talk about the future of bass and where do you see recorded bass 20 years down the road, or live bass? But we'll save that for another discussion.
I'll give it up now. It's AI is going to do all of it, so it's not to worry. Yeah. Did I strike it? Did I touch a nerve there? Oh
no!
About this AI stuff, Robert.
You know where I stand on this. So,
guys, thank you so much. Everybody watching in today, thanks for joining. Like I always say, if it's not for you guys watching the show, we're out of a job. Haji, thank you for being in the background, posting links and everything, and Aaron for putting this all together. And we'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And actually 2 weeks, I think that puts us the week of the 4th. So it might actually be 3 weeks, but just keep on checking the Ampeg Facebook page and posts, and we'll have it. So
Sounds
all right, everybody.
awesome. Yep.
Have a great Tuesday.
Thanks all.
Thanks.
See ya.